Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have the president of Judicial Watch. It is Tom Fitton, judicialwatch.org. Tom, how are you? Happy New Year.
Hey, good to be with you, Joe. Happy New Year to you.
It's really good to have you. Go ahead.
Christmas season.
It is. It feels like the Christmas season. I'm here in Texas, but it's going to get really cold Monday. Yeah. So it's still going to feel like the Christmas season for a while, and we're still joyous, although 2024 has come out of the box pretty weird, in my opinion. Let's get into a story that I broke to my listeners and viewers yesterday about Ashli Babbitt and her family. I didn't realize off the bat, I'm glad we have you on today, that it was you guys that are bringing this suit against the government. Are you bringing this suit against Byrd, the guy who shot Ashli Babbitt, or against the government?
No, we're suing the United States government. So the government's responsible for Byrd's actions. He's an employee of the U.S. Capitol Police and Congress and the federal government, and that's who you sue for a wrongful death action like our lawyers are bringing for Aaron Babbitt, who is the widower of Ashli and Ashli's estate. We're suing out in California, the Southern District there in the San Diego area. But, it's a straightforward lawsuit. I mean, It was a bad police shooting, right? And there are certain claims that arise from that. There was no good reason to shoot Ashli Babbitt. He broke about every rule in the book when it came to a situation like that and misusing his firearm, resulting in her death. And it was an unlawful homicide, in our view. And let's be clear here, because, there's this story about January 6th, and this is why, in my view, Lieutenant Byrd hasn't faced sufficient accountability. Ashli Babbitt was the only homicide victim on January 6th, and it was the result of a reckless act by a U.S. Capitol Police officer.
I'm glad you brought that up. Well, Tom, let me stop you, because just 2 days ago, Joe Biden said he and Jill went to funerals of police officers that were killed that day or that died that day. And this is the narrative that's been around for 3+ years now. Do you, in bringing the suit, have to break through the narrative that a jury pool probably believes?
Well, the videos are going to show what the videos show, which is that this poor woman was in the window and he shot her. I'm sorry, I can't get past it. I've watched the video repeatedly. I'm not a lawyer. All I know is I can't believe he shot her. I just can't believe he shot her. And we have new information in the complaint, including information about the radio call he made within a minute saying shots fired at me. In fact, he was the only person who had shot anyone. So
we first heard about that we first heard about that yesterday. That's such a vital piece of information that I never heard before. No. He literally shoots and kills her, then radios in and says he's being shot at.
Right.
Which we know didn't happen. Nobody had a firearm but him.
And there were issues about his misconduct in the past. It's been reported previously that he left his loaded service weapon in the bathroom in the Capitol Visitor Center, which is the main entranceway for the public to visit the United States Capitol complex. Right. But separately, we have information in that lawsuit, and we allege that he had fired his weapon at his own car. It looks like, based on what we see, that some kids had tried to take his car. He fired at them, and bullets went all over the place, it looks like.
Wow. Well, so, Tom, why was the Capitol Police so fast to exonerate? There's a little bit of a delay, and I don't mean to talk over you, because what you're saying is so important. Why was the Capitol Police so quick to exonerate this guy?
Oh, politics. I mean, we can guess what happened, but there was a whole narrative on January 6th that was being leveraged by the left Borg and Democrats to try to impeach Trump first, right? And then try to jail their political opponents. They first started with January 6 protesters, some who deserved prosecution, many others who probably didn't.
Right. And
on top of that, they followed through with these absurd prosecutions of President Trump here in D.C. and Fulton County, which doesn't seem to be turning out the way some have anticipated. And prosecutions of state party officials and other activists who were disputing the election throughout. January 6th, of course, is the fulcrum to justify this tyrannical regime prosecution of its political opposition.
It's Tom Fitton, judicialwatch.org. Go there and support everything they do. Incredible organization. He's the president. When I watched the video, and I watched it several times, it's been a little bit since I've seen it, but I watched the video. She is crawling through the window, and I don't think he ever says, "Stop, police." I don't think he ever identifies himself at all. It's a guy in a suit who takes out a gun and shoots her. And then when they widen out a little bit, and you see her on the ground as she's dying, Tom, from being shot for no reason. 100-pound lady. She wasn't armed. She wasn't saying, "I'm going to get you, I'm going to kill people." I don't know what put her in that position to be going through the window. That doesn't really matter. What I do know is there are uniformed police officers behind her the whole time. I mean, they're wearing these big blue outfits or dark or black outfits that say police all over them. They could have grabbed her. They could have put her in some sort of a handcuff situation, or the zip ties that they use, and it all would have been over. She would easily have been subdued by them. Why does the guy on the other side do the shooting? Do we have any idea?
I mean, it just highlights the recklessness of it. I mean, he shot into a crowd.
Yeah.
Joe, I mean, you've been around law enforcement a long time.
Yeah.
And as citizens, we all see what happens when there's a police shooting like this. There's a serious grand jury investigation, and woe to the police officer who discharges his firearm, even in justified circumstances. And in this case, evidently, where there was no justification, he got a completely different treatment by both the Justice Department and the Capitol Hill Police. And what's interesting about all of this, and I want to go back to that window thing, because this isn't in the lawsuit. I'm just responding as someone who's watching these videos. She was distressed. The video shows she was distressed. She saw what was going on. And I have it in my head that I think she was looking for safety in going through that window.
You could be right, yeah.
And there was no reason whatsoever to shoot her. He ambushed, as the lawsuit alleges, he ambushed her and shot her dead. And, there's got to be some justice here. There's got to be some accountability. And it leads to the next question is, how is this case going to proceed, right? It's the U.S. government. The Congress has equities, right, in this case. It's the U.S. Capitol Police. What's Speaker Johnson's position going to be on this big issue of Ashli Babbitt shooting death? Does he think it was okay?
It's a great question. This has often been maligned in the media and even on my show. I'll be honest with you. When people call in, they get confused about this. Is it or is it not the Speaker of the House's ultimate job to be the leader of the Capitol Police? In other words, a chief. There are captains. But the Speaker of the House literally can direct them. Can he or she not?
Well, the way it works is there's a Capitol Hill Police Board, and there's an appointee of the president there through the architect of the Capitol. He's appointed by the president, confirmed by the United States Senate. The Senate Sergeant of Arms, so he works for the majority. He's an appointee of the majority.
Right.
In that case, it was McConnell's appointee who was Capitol on the board at the time. Now it's Schumer's. And then the House has their appointee. So the House Speaker has a significant role in the sense that his Sergeant of Arms, the House Sergeant of Arms, his appointee is on the Capitol Hill Police Board. And so how's this going to work? It's going to be interesting to see. Back then, it was McConnell and Pelosi and Trump's appointee, the architect of the Capitol, plus the chief of police, who there is, I think, as an ex officio member.
Right.
Now there's a different makeup.
It is Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch, judicialwatch.org. So it begs the question, could Mike Johnson right now decide to open some sort of investigation on Byrd's actions that day? Although he's been exonerated from this internal investigation. Capitol Police investigated the Capitol Police. Doesn't make any sense. So an internal investigation exonerates him. Nancy Pelosi, I believe, is on record, certainly others are, saying he saved lives that day by doing what he did. Can Mike Johnson reopen this thing?
Sure. I mean, the House can investigate anything it wants.
Okay. In
this regard, I mean, it's the operations of the U.S. Capitol Police. How can the House not investigate it? And then separately, obviously, he has influence with the Capitol Hill Police Board as the Speaker of the House. And generally speaking, my impression is when it comes to the operations of the Capitol complex and the security, the House is kind of seen, the Speaker's seen as the mayor, right?
Yes.
Not officially, but practically, he has probably influence that goes beyond as what I'm describing in terms of just having one appointee on the police board.
It is Tom Fitton, judicialwatch.org. Go and support everything they do. Incredible investigations, incredible stories.
They fund the police. I mean, there's no...
Right.
and right now we're in court trying to get the January 6th videos. Congress is opposing us. There are emails. Congress is opposing us. All sorts of things Speaker Johnson can be doing above and beyond what he's currently doing, which is, I guess, releasing some videos in a seemingly piecemeal fashion.
Well, he's doing that. Plus, he's also agreeing with Schumer on increasing our debt, which is crazy. That's another story for another day, I guess.
Well, to me, this is all part of a piece, right? We need leadership that's going to kind of take really aggressive steps for government accountability, because I think we're in a crisis. And like a shooting death on January 6th, supposedly the worst day in the history of America, according to the left Borg, and we can't get much accountability there other than Judicial Watch pursuing a lawsuit independently. Where's our Justice Department? Where's the D.C. police? Where is Congress?
Tom, what's amazing to me is that you and I have been talking about January 6th since it happened, probably a few days afterwards you came on. And I've been saying this the entire time. Who benefited from what happened on January 6th? And it certainly wasn't Donald Trump. It wasn't a conservative movement in this country. Who benefited was Joe Biden. Who benefited was the Uniparty. Who benefited was those who want to shut down any sort of voice that would be loud enough to be heard. Like you said, those who rioted, arrest them. Those who vandalized, arrest them. Everybody else, it was, as CNN would report, a mostly peaceful protest that day. In fact, it was a mostly peaceful assembly. They weren't even protesting. The people that were listening to Trump speak down the road were not protesting. They were listening and cheering him on. And then most of them marched down to the Capitol and did nothing. There's a 70-year-old woman took a selfie inside, and she's arrested and facing all sorts of weird charges. So how do we get to the bottom of this? You and I both know what I just said is true. The benefit was not for Donald Trump. He wasn't trying to overthrow anything. They were telling the people in the Senate and the House, yes, challenge the electors if you find them to be fraudulent or in question. And they couldn't do that because of January 6th. That all went away, and they certified the election. So how do we get the real story out? I guess is the long way to get to a simple question.
Well, through litigation like this, if I were in the House, I would retract the January 6th report and begin anew. That doesn't mean you have to do hearings and such, but just means you do a more serious analysis and investigation.
Right.
If the next honest president, I think, should look into massively pardoning and commuting the sentences of those already serving or who've already who already are serving,
right,
and let them out, because this Justice Department can't be trusted. We say arrest the rioters. Well, I mean, that assumes that there's like a process that you can trust, and this Justice Department politicized that process.
True. And
they didn't treat the rioters the same they have treated others involved in civil disturbances. And and they always lecture us. We have to be nuanced, right, in our analysis of public events. What happened on January 6th? There were illegal activities by citizens.
Right.
There were illicit activities by the police.
Right.
There was that shooting death, and there were other people who were just there, as we point out, and weren't doing anything wrong. And you had the police, because they were poorly trained and didn't have sufficient security as a result of political decision making by Pelosi and others. We started attacking the crowd in some respects,
right,
as well. And did it mean that the violence toward the police are justified? No, but that's the nuance, right? And of course, the Justice Department and everyone else doesn't want to talk about all of this. I mean, the only people who are sensible on January 6th are folks like us who are concerned about the rule of law breaking down there,
right,
and trying to figure out how it happened. And there's a political party and a left party. The left narrative wants to just blame one particular person, Donald Trump.
Right.
And that doesn't make any sense to any normal American.
Well, it doesn't. I think all normal Americans just want the truth, left or right. I think they want the truth, and they're not getting the truth. We're getting a narrative, and a lot of people on that one side believe they're all insurrectionists. Donald Trump ginned it up. He incited everything. He wanted to overturn the election. He refused to leave. Now he's a dictator if he gets reelected, which is crazy. It's Tom Fitton, judicialwatch.org. I want to get into Hunter Biden quickly. Hunter Biden shows up, defies a subpoena to Congress, does a little dog and pony show outside in front of the cameras and microphones, gets back in the SUV and leaves. Now, if his name is Peter Navarro, he's going to be charged with contempt of Congress. We still haven't seen anything yet. What should happen with this?
Well, there's going to be a referral to the Justice Department, the U.S. Attorney here in the District of Columbia, from Congress. I think the vote is going to, I don't know if it's the full House vote will take place tomorrow, but certainly the committee vote reporting it to the full House will take place tomorrow. And now we're going to have to wonder, or now we're going to have to wait for the Biden Justice Department to figure out whether they want to prosecute Hunter Biden for contempt. I mean, the challenge is, in addition to the obvious conflict of interest, is that Joe endorsed his contempt to commutacious conduct, right? I think that's the word they use in the in the law. And so is Hunter going to be prosecuted, but will also Joe? And that would be my question. And something that Congress probably doesn't want anyone to know is that they have the authority, each individual House, to arrest and detain someone who's in contempt of their proceedings to enforce the subpoena. So if they wanted to, they could reinforce or reestablish the rules under which they arrest those who are in contempt. It doesn't mean they obviously can throw out the rule of law there, but they can take separate and independent action to enforce a subpoena beyond just referring it and relying on the Justice Department to prosecute, which only prosecutes based on politics in this day and age, unfortunately.
A couple of interesting things that happened that day. One, he said, my father was never financially involved in my business dealings. That's a new spin on how Joe was or wasn't in the know. And then KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, later, when asked about it, said, of course the president knew what his son was going to say. Does that mean that he was aiding and abetting the contempt of Congress? I mean, that was kind of odd to me when I heard that.
Well, I'm sure a grand jury will be convened immediately and question Joe Biden directly on it, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to hold my breath on that one, Tom.
You know, that was the court hearing today. Is Congress, or I mean, is the President of the United States immune from criminal prosecution? And I tell you, if they say that Trump isn't immune from criminal prosecution for acts he took as President of the United States, all bets are off for Joe, Obama, and who knows who else.
Well, their backs are against the wall. He's going to be found to have immunity because you're right. Everybody down the line is going to be called in then, if he doesn't.
Well, my guess is the left is thinking the Republicans never will do that.
They might be right, Tom.
It's never from the left perspective is that the Republicans warn that, they'll come after us. It never happens.
Yeah. It's true. I wish that it would, but it starting to look more like the Uniparty. Mike Johnson, I'm not very impressed in the past couple of days with this whole budget stuff, but hopefully he'll step up and do something else better. Tom, it's been too long. You got to come back on again. Go and support Judicial Watch, judicialwatch.org. He's the president. It's Tom Fitton. Tom, thanks a million.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you, Joe.